Hello, everybody. Roger Durling, Executive Director of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and I'm excited to talk with the filmmakers of Black Bear. We have producer and actor Aubrey Plaza with us, and then we have writer director Lawrence Michael Levine. Welcome, both of you. Um,
Hi.
I'll start with Lawrence. Actually, right before we went on air, we were talking about that your film it brings up so many interpretations from the audience, and that we actually have to do work. We have to um, get inside this movie and try to be actively engaged in the world you've created. Can you tell us your approach to creating this film, and was that your intention to leave it open-ended for interpretations from people?
Um, yes, it was definitely my intention to leave the movie open to a lot of interpretations. There was a finite number of interpretations that I personally had and was aware of. So I was conscious of several different interpretations that one could make of the movie. I've heard a few that I never thought of as well, but I think, but that's satisfying to me. I mean, the most satisfying reaction that I've had to the movie is I'd never really been on Reddit, but my producer told me to go look on Reddit and see what people were saying about Black Bear. And there was such like a robust conversation about what the movie was about. And people had invested a lot of time in these interpretations because they were like long, page long things. Um, so I don't know, I thought that was really gratifying. I'm the kind of person who's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I never really settle on a final interpretation of the world. And I think I'm resistant to definitive ideologies and things like that. I think looking at the world through one particular ideological lens or intellectual lens is really limiting.
Hmm.
So I was interested in making a movie that was open-ended and encouraged the viewers to think and look at the world from a sort of in a non-determinate way.
Hmm. I mentioned that I've seen the film a couple of times, and it is such a resonant piece in the state that we're in right now, after this past year that we've been in COVID, and the whole idea of healing, and at the end the movie we find a sort of peace in it. Did you guys ever imagine while you were making this piece that this movie would be so relevant to the condition we're in right now?
Aubrey?
No, I don't think so. Um, no, I think we probably even made jokes about like feeling like we were quarantined together, and I never imagined how many times I would say that word out loud after we made that movie.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's almost like we lived a big quarantine without really any particular reason besides making a movie. But no, who could see a global pandemic coming except, I guess, the people who did. But certainly I wasn't one of them. I think, it was definitely a movie that was receptive to the era in which it was made. Not in a direct way, but the themes of selfishness and manipulation, amorality, um, and just kind of hostility and enervation, I think, in the general culture found their way into the movie.
Hmm. Aubrey, you go through so many range of emotions in this film. Was the film shot chronologically, and what was that like to go through that all the range of emotions and experiences that the character goes through?
um, it was mostly shot chronologically. Yes, we shot the first part first and the second part after that. So I think in some ways it was good for me to kind of build up to that the kind of craziness of the second part, the just the energy that and the yeah, that it was good for me to kind of be there and exist in that space and be with those people and get to that place. I think it was, yeah, it was, I think all of us, Chris Abbott, Sarah Gadden, and I, like, we all kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. And so I think for me yeah, it was a lot about kind of conserving my energy and committing to whatever was in front of me at the moment. But it was hard, it was challenging. I think I knew it was going to be like that going into it.
Hmm. Um, and Lawrence, there is a combination of surrealism and realism in the both in the script and also in the filmmaking. You know, can you tell us about balancing those two aspects of the film?
Yeah, sure. I didn't think so much about it other than I knew that I wanted to do something like that before I started to write. So I was definitely interested in doing something that wasn't straightforward and that felt. I was very interested in making a dream film and a dream that was reflective of my kind of subconscious life in some ways. And my dreams are really, really vivid and they feel really real. But at the same time, there's certain strangenesses within them. So I don't have like, you know, and I feel this is probably the true of most people, that our dream lives aren't like crazy where we're, you know, on a flying carpet and, you know, there's weird creatures from outer space or whatever. Like usually it's just like your friends and family in a slightly weird context.
Hmm.
And I was interested in capturing that tone. And so that's kind of where the impulse came from. As far as balancing it, I didn't think about that so much. I thought a lot more about balancing comedy and tragedy. That was the more tricky kind of thing because I didn't want the audience to be laughing so much that they were insensitive to the insensitive rather to the tragedy of the situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, all throughout the film, there's a lightheartedness that seeps in throughout. In both sections, there's a playfulness to the piece that is quite welcome. Aubrey, I was fascinated with the role that you know, in the first half, she actually fesses up that she says, you know, you know, I've been lying all along. She seems to be in control in the first half, and the second half, she seems to be at the mercy of you know, she's out of control. You know, was that challenging? Was that something that you actually enjoy navigating?
Um, yes, to both. I think, yeah, I think it's really interesting. Sarah and I talked a lot about the power dynamics in the difference between the first half and the second half, and I think the shift in power dynamics was what was really interesting about the movie for both of us, and that feeling of like when you kind of know that you're in control and you're kind of calling the shots, and then yeah, and then when you feel totally out of control, I feel like I know how both of those things feel. So it felt really, it was fun to play with both of those. And I think but I think that there were a lot of, I mean, even like when I say, you know, I've been lying this since the second I got here, it's like I don't even know if that's true. You know, I mean, there's a version where that's not even really true too. So um, it was a real mind trip, and
Yeah.
it was it was very fun, but also very exhausting to kind of, yeah, to navigate that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering, I mean, and you don't, and I, I, when I asked the question, I don't want you guys to reveal your interpretations and where you feel the characters were at, but did you, did you have a direct understanding of like, in this particular situation, she's saying she's lying, but internally I know she's not, or etc. Do you know what I'm trying to get at?
I think so. I did. I mean, I think we all, it wasn't something that that any of us knew for sure what the intention was, at least on the page. But I think for my own process, I need to know what I'm doing, and I need to have a direct interpretation of what my character's going through. And even though the film there's two very different parts to it, I still approached it as one cohesive movie, and on at least on an unconscious level, that I had a journey that I was going on from the beginning to the end, and the circumstances were changing and the reality was changing, but I still felt kind of like deep down, I there was an understanding for me of kind of where I was at and what was real to me.
Hmm. Lawrence, another character in this movie is the house itself. Um, I, what I love about this place is that it feels cozy, but it's grand. It feels modern, but timely. And then it has all these windows and the dock outside. Was that difficult to find that space? And is that the space that you dreamed of when you were writing the piece?
I wrote the piece originally for another house. A friend of mine showed me this property that had showed me photographs of this property that his family owned in the Adirondacks. Like it was near very close to where we shot. There's a bunch of cabins around a lake, and he showed me this, and I wrote the movie to be set in this specific place. But by the time we were able to make the movie, it was no longer available. So I kind of had this script that I had tailored toward a location that had very particular aspects to it. And I had to find a place that was exactly like this other one, or else I would have to change the movie substantially. It would have been a pretty different movie if there weren't three separate structures all in view of a lake. So that was the main thing we were looking for. And this house was really inconvenient. It was very far away from any city. And it was hard getting crew. It was hard getting cast. Not cast, sorry. It was hard getting cast there. And we had to put everybody up because it was so far from any city. Like we had to put everybody up in hotels. Like it was far from New York City, for example. And we didn't get Wi-Fi, we didn't get cell phone service. So there were a lot of there were a lot of downsides to the house, but it was the only house that had those three aspects. And one of the great things in particular about the house was that it was really so much of there were so many bear tchotchkes like all around this house that we actually had to remove some because it would have just seemed too like we're trying too hard to get bear imagery in this house. I mean, I counted and took pictures of every bear that was in this house, just like, envelope openers and paperweights and, just like everything had a bear. So that was kind of interesting and maybe auspicious. But the coolest thing about the house, I think, was that there was a national state park or a national park, I don't know which, on the other side of the lake. So when Allison looks out across the lake into the mist and into the nature on the other side, there's no houses or anything. And that was something that I felt really strongly about, that I didn't want whatever she looked at to have houses on it, because I wanted it to feel really secluded and remote, so that we're never sure if this is a sort of dream space or a head space. In some way, houses on the other side would have situated it in the right world, in the real world, and it wouldn't have been so removed in a way, and such a contemplative kind of image. So I don't know.
Yeah. The other aspect that I was noticing is all the windows. This house has so many big windows, and
Yeah.
a lot of the time the scenes, most of the film takes place during night. Was that a detriment? The fact that you couldn't, that you had to shoot at night, but then you had this, I guess you could black out the windows, but you guys
Um,
shot.
you can black out the windows normally, but we couldn't afford it. There were so many windows. It was a big sacrifice. There were so many windows that we couldn't afford to black them out. We didn't have the time or the money. So it really meant that we had to shoot almost everything at actual night, which the main problem was that you only get 8 hours of night during the summer. So there's no overtime. You have 8 hours to shoot and that's that. Once the sun is coming up, you're cooked and you have to start as soon as it goes down. So 8 hours is not necessarily a normal shoot day. You want to have at least 12, um, but we didn't. So that was kind of a problem. And windows, if you black them out, there's subtle details that you miss, particularly in the living room scenes. And which are some of the most important and longest, biggest scenes in the movie in that living room. If you look out the windows, Rob, the cinematographer, arranged a lot of detail in the night, because when you look out at night in a movie where the house has been tinted or blacked out, you just see kind of black, like it's almost like a black wall painted
Mhm.
black. We have like a lot of detail. You'll see little trees lit up and little lights on the porch and stuff like that. They give the film more visual interest. But we sacrificed to get it. We sacrificed to have that, and it was yeah, it was a problem.
And Ingrid, you produced a film, and you've produced before. One of my favorite movies, Ingrid Goes West. Tell us about. Were you attached as a producer from the get-go?
Yeah, Larry, yeah, when Larry brought me the script, um, he kind of told me right away that he wanted me to be a producer on it. And it felt right for me to just because it just I mean it's not the script was is such a beautifully written script, but it is such a small, like, intimate artistic film, and a lot of times it's really hard to get financing for movies like that. So I was really excited to come on as a producer and do everything I could to get it made and be involved in the process, like, from the beginning. Uh,
Mhm. And Larry, there is not much. You talked about your cinematographer, the first half and the second half. There is not that much visual change, but you do go into handheld camera. Can you tell us about the visual shift throughout the movie?
Yeah, we were looking for a way to distinguish the two parts without it feeling too heavy-handed. We wanted the movie to feel cohesive, but at the same time, the two parts have a different emotional tenor. And so we wanted the shooting style to serve that. The strategy we came up with was we're going to have similar lighting, color palette, same costumes, but on different characters. And and that one we would use no, in the first part we would use no handheld, and the second part we would use all handheld. And that was a fun way to do it. I felt like it was subtle enough where the audience would feel a difference without making an intellectual note of saying like they shot one uh, on sticks and dollies and they shot the other on handheld.
Hmm. Aubrey, there is a meta aspect to the film. The fact that in part two we see the crew filming you. I was just wondering, and might be a silly question, the fact that how does it feel for you? Like, you were acting the scene, and then you're surrounded by a crew that is actually part of the story, and then outside of that, there must have been another crew filming as well.
yeah, it was very dreamlike. I don't know how to explain it, but we were, I mean, first of all, actors that are playing crew members are also such great actors, and played their parts like so well that there were times that I straight up thought, like, I forgot that Lindsay Burge, who plays the makeup artist in the crew, like, wasn't the makeup artist. There was a moment I remember, kind of like a flash, where she came up to me and was, and I stuck my face out to her as if like she was gonna touch down or whatever. And I just didn't even think twice about it. And she did almost. I think she did. I think she like gave me a tissue. I don't know what. There were a lot of moments like that where things were just kind of, yeah, the lines were very blurry. And I think because of this, the space was so contained, we were all kind of on top of each other anyway. It just felt like we were all just this like one big animal that was like kind of like snaking through the house. Like it was just very trippy and weird.
I remember when we had just finished shooting, you didn't know that my friend Kevin was an actor in the movie. He plays a gaffer, and you thought he was actually a gaffer on the movie,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
didn't know
totally.
until I think the last day of the shoot or something.
I believe that. Fully
Um,
believe that.
Aubrey, were there to prepare for the role? Were there, were there roles that you looked at, other performances that inspire you? I kept thinking of Jenna Rollins in Opening Night when I see you in this film. The way that she just go, or Woman Under the Influence, also Jenna Rollins, where you have this actor that goes completely full on emotional.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like that is the best compliment ever. Opening Night is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I love Woman Under the Influence also. I mean, yes, like I think on a unconscious level, she's always inspired me. Um, so definitely, yeah. I mean, I didn't like, watch it to prepare necessarily, but definitely that she's an influence for me for sure. And I think just the uh, kind of the subject matter of filming, making a movie about filming a movie and making a movie with your partner and how kind of messy that gets. And yeah, that came up a lot for me. I think Christopher Abbott and I both talked about that a lot when we were shooting the movie. um,
Hmm.
Cassavetes in general, it felt
Hmm.
like, yeah, it felt like that a little bit.
And diving into that depth of emotion, was it difficult to shake off um at the end of the day, or
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really shook it off at the end of those nights, I would say. But I would say it was a marathon. Like I think especially because we were shooting nights, there was no time for normalcy during the production. Like it felt very contained. Like the entire experience felt like just one long dream, and I would say that when it was over, I it was very hard for me to shake off. I actually went on a vacation right after, which I will never do again. I learned my lesson. But I thought like, oh, I'll just go and get on a plane, we'll wrap the movie and then I'll get on a plane and go on this vacation. And I was such a mess. I like could barely like wrap my head around, going through airport security. I was just, yeah, it took me a while to like get that out of my system. But I think that was just how it had to be. It was that kind of movie. We all just dove off the deep end together.
hmm and Lawrence, can I love to talk to you about the music choices. I was I, I was just noticing, the first half of the movie has this sort of ominous tone to it. Then by the second half of the movie, you start introducing sort of like a little more percussion. And then by the end, there is a lot of bass and trumpets playing. It's a really interesting score. Can you tell us about the evolution of that?
Yeah, again, it was a matter of similarly to the shooting style. I had to think the same way about the music. So I wanted to have music that had some similarities, some constant between the two parts, but also to reflect the unique tenor of each part. So um, again, I kind of looked at part one as a more classical movie, shot with, with sticks and dollies and whatever, and then also having a score that that really, really, that really built this tension in a simmering way. And for the next part, which I saw as more enervated, more aggressive in some ways, and just more um, ferocious, I started to weave in other instrumentation, but also there are certain musical themes that continue throughout. And I also had to be wary of how much I built in part one, however high I went, because the movie has this wave-like structure where it builds and then it drops back down and then it builds again. But I wanted to make sure that the second build was higher than the first build in some ways, and then a release at the very end of the movie. So it was a matter of kind of understanding consciously that you want a movie to build, and go like this, but also an awareness that I had have waves within it. So, and that's how we approached the music, which I really enjoyed, and I felt like the people I worked with, Brian Scaria and Giulio Carmazzi, they were incredible, and they play every instrument um, that you hear in the movie, and they recorded every piece of music that's in
And
every instrument, every note is by them.
and not to get too technical, but was the score it was afterwards, or you guys already had the idea of what you were using and used it during the set to help, or
No, it was totally afterward. In fact, I thought the movie was going to have no score at all and be totally silent. But when I watched when the movie was coming together in the edit, I tested it without, and then I put some temp music down, and I realized that the temp music was helpful, so I used it. I mean, I decided to go with composers, and actually there's like a ton of music. There's like wall to wall music, but no, initially I thought I would have no music, so.
and it question for the two of you. The second half has this what it seems like this fluid choreography. There's all this stuff happening, the coffee spills, the Laura, the Paula Lazaro starts getting ill. There's all this different things happening. Was that, can you tell us about choreographing all those bits? And were those plotted or they were improvised?
Kind of a mixture. A lot of it was plotted. So actually it was a little less complicated to do than I had worried. When we got to set, a lot of it was written in, and the actors were all extremely intelligent, and like, well, they were. And so like they read the script, they looked at the space, and they were like, looks like where we should be. So it actually came together more quickly than I thought. That being said, getting 20 or so people to get on the same page and work together and be where they need to be at specific times is still challenging. But a lot of it was scripted, and then the cast embellished and added to it and made it better with with the kind of ideas that they brought to it. Whether you want to call that improvisation or not, I don't know, because people weren't really coming up with new stuff while we were shooting. They were trying it out while we were rehearsing, and kind of building. We were kind of building it together. So the actors brought a lot of ideas to the table that made it into the movie, but I don't think many of them, they were like just coming up with out of nowhere on screen while we were shooting.
And how difficult was the editing process?
Um, it was normal. It wasn't that difficult. It was a little fast. I think we had about 8 months total to make this movie. So from the time we shot it to the time we premiered it was only 8 months, which is a little quick.
Hmm.
Usually you want to have a year at least, maybe a year and a half. But so it was just a little quick. And the editor lived in New York, so I had to keep going back and forth, which was a little annoying. We didn't have as much coverage as I would have liked to have. There were a lot of things we couldn't shoot because we didn't have time or money. So there's a lot missing from this movie that I'm aware of that other people aren't.
Hmm. And Aubrey, when the film finished, I mean, the shooting, how involved were you in the editing and the film and the the final product?
Um, I was involved, like, I watched some early cuts and gave my thoughts, and um, yeah, I was involved. But I think, at a certain point, it, it was just kind of like, you know, it just got there.
Yeah, I remember you being involved throughout, not just early, just, whenever we had a cut, we sent it to you and you gave your thoughts and a lot of them
Yeah.
were really helpful, which was cool because you worry about actors doing that.
And
They want more close-ups, so but Aubrey
Yeah, I
was
think
cool, was cool
it
about
was a it was good process for me because I think Ingrid Goes West was a I think the first time that I had to disassociate from my performance and just watch the movie as a movie and give notes about just the movie, not focus on what I'm doing or be horrified by everything that I'm doing. So I
Mhm.
think that this was like even harder to do that because it was just so much of me. But like, yeah, it was. I mean, the movie, it's just it's a weird movie to watch and give notes on. It's just it's all coming from Larry. It's like, you know, how do you give notes on something like that?
Yeah, a lot is coming from Larry, but there's a lot coming from you too. It's a quite an emotional, powerful performance. Um, Larry, you mentioned earlier that you had read some crazy interpretations of the, film. What is the one that has like, uh, you know, befuddled you the most?
Oh, there was something about the multiverse on there. I didn't really actually get it. But most of them I totally understood. And I was like, yeah, people really understand these movies. People are like, I don't know, this is my crazy theory. And then they just say exactly what I was thinking.
Hmm.
So,
What is a multiverse? Like,
but I don't like to, what's the multiverse? I don't know that there's parallel universes going on. It was, yeah,
sliding
yeah.
doors. Mm.
Yeah, parallel universes or something. But some people are like into, more physics minded, multiverse, black holes, weird things that like I didn't that I
That
didn't
was
think
the
of.
original title of the movie was Black Hole, right?
Yeah, black hole.
And what
Like
was
the
the
black, no, but seriously, that's what it was. It was like the black bear was a portal into another time, into a parallel dimension or something, which is
I
kind
believe
of cool, but
and what was it, Aubrey premiering the film at Sundance, which must feel like it was 5 years ago, and it was only a year ago.
it was a year
Yeah.
ago today.
Yeah,
No way.
today.
That's what my editor just told me. He sent me a text.
Was
He
it the
said,
24th? I knew today was special.
I don't know. He said it was the anniversary of the premiere.
Well, congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Made it.
Yeah,
Made
yeah,
it. Santa Barbara via
yeah.
Turkey.
So, what was that experience like? Which, as I said, it must feel like it was 5 years ago.
Um, it was excruciating. It's so exciting to watch, the final product on a big screen. I mean, it was so special to watch it at Sundance. It's the best place to premiere a movie ever. You just can't beat that energy of the audience. But I think my head was like between my legs pretty much the entire time. I was just dying the whole time.
Yeah, I was pretty scared and
Yeah.
nervous too. So I was just, I didn't know at any point, this movie was like a real gamble. I didn't know if it was going to get made. I didn't know if people were going to like it. I didn't know if it was going to get distribution. Like, I never felt like, yeah, this is a, you know, this is a hit. I've got a hit on my hands. So every step of the way, I was really nervous, like the the rug was going to be pulled out from under the whole thing.
I know.
So
My dad was there.
yeah, that was
He's
my,
like, that was really weird.
yeah,
Like,
my dad thought
yeah,
it was weird too. So, you know, but that screening was really cool. I mean, that audience was great. That was, they were really into it. So that was probably one of the better experiences of my life. But also I was terrified beforehand.
Hmm.
So that was probably one of the worst experiences of my life.
Well, the reviews have been so positive about it, and people are talking about it. It's a very it creates a lot of conversation, um, and that must feel really good.
Yeah, that was the intention.
Yeah, yeah, it's terrific. Well, um, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and
Yeah, thank you.
no, it's a terrific film, and I encourage everybody to spread the word. Black Bear is still out there. Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you, Lawrence.
My pleasure. This
yeah.
was
Okay,
great.
thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you.